Good afternoon, Liz.
Good afternoon, whom?
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Very good. So you see, we met in ISVEE in Sydney last year, and you told me to come to SafePork in Rennes, and actually here we are. Very nice to meet you, and of course, we just concluded our SafePork in Rennes 2025. I don't know what is 15 SafePork Rennes, and we are of course we have just announced that the next one will be in Vietnam, and INRI is very happy to co-host this next SafePork in Hanoi. That will be the first one in Asia and in Vietnam, and we look forward very much to welcoming you and many colleagues here to Hanoi in 2 years. Okay, so I take this opportunity to ask you a few questions because you are the chief scientist of the Danish Agriculture and Food Council, and I enjoy very much the talks. This morning you gave 2 or 3 talks on behalf of many people, but also enjoying very much perspective in terms of policies and so on. So can you please tell us a little bit about you, about your career, about your work so far?
Yeah, I was trained as a veterinarian, so I graduated from the University of Copenhagen, and then I was 1 year in small animal practice in the United Kingdom because I wanted to be true to the original dream about becoming a veterinarian.
Yeah.
But I also soon realized that I like working with bigger issues than just an individual animal, an individual cow or cat or dog. So what I went to do was a PhD in epidemiology.
Yeah.
So I worked on questions about animal welfare in cattle using epidemiological approaches and a lot of data. And from then I moved to the industry because at the industry they are the ones who have the challenges.
Yeah.
And for challenges you need solutions. And I find that the work that I could offer to them was epidemiological analysis, risk assessments, would be a help to all the situations they had that they needed to deal with. And I've been there for 25 years now. I had my anniversary a couple of months ago, and the reason why I'm still there is that it's so interesting as a researcher that actually your solutions come into play. So acting as a chief scientist there means a lot to me because I can actually go out and change something that means a lot for millions of animals, not just in Denmark, but also in other countries, because the solutions we suggest is often something that can also be used in other countries, of course modified to that country's needs.
Yeah. Very interesting. So how long did you practice as a vet to do clinical work, taking care of animals? Or you move quickly to the research?
It was only half a year, a little more than half
only?
A year.
Okay.
Due to some specific reasons, I had to go back to Denmark, and I started my PhD there. So I also recognize that in many of these issues that we're dealing with, I'm not the expert.
Yeah.
I need to talk to other people, for example, the pig veterinarians, the abattoir specialists. It can be people in food microbiology, because it's only when we collaborate that we're actually capable of finding the solutions to the challenges. No, it's not one man or woman finding the big solutions. It's usually in collaboration. In
collaborations, alliance, mobilizing the knowledge of many people. You see, the title of chief scientist, I recently observed that many organizations come up with this position. FAO, they had the first chief scientist few years back. Our CGIA, we had the first one last year. So when the organization when did they have this position for the organization?
I think this was about 15 years ago.
Already?
And then what also happened was, because I moved from the university to the industry, and the interesting thing was to me that the university also contacted me and asked me to become an adjunct professor.
Yeah.
Because in that way I could act as a bridge between academia and industry. I think again about collaboration, the solutions we find become better, stronger, more resilient, more sustainable if we collaborate across the players, academia, competent authority, and food business operators.
Yeah. So you said that you don't know everything. Obviously, you cannot know everything in the sector. So what is the typical day of work as the chief scientist of the Danish Agriculture and Food Council?
Well, it's usually that there are some challenges. Something is not working as good as it should. And then in my group, we are being asked, could you please have a look upon that? And it could, for example, be, if there's a specific challenge, we want to hear how are they solving this in the other countries? Because often it is the same problems we have in the pig sector all over the world. There might be different solutions, but it's often the same problems we are suffering from.
Yeah.
And then you need a network to go out and listen to the other people. How are you solving this problem? How are you seeing where we should go? Could we help each other? Again, we're back to collaboration.
Okay, very much. Not only in Denmark, but it looked like that we expanded
exactly
beyond Denmark as well.
Yeah. I think it's very important that you don't just sit in your own country or your own sector. I think it's really important that you go out and you also see the things from the perspective of other countries. Let's say it is an export issue. We want to export pig meat to another country. We also need to be in a good dialogue with the country we're exporting to understand their concerns, to find out of ways to be able to document whatever is necessary for the export.
Yeah.
I guess for Vietnam it's the same. I mean, you're a huge pig producing country. You must also be in a situation where maybe you could export or extend your export. So you're also looking at things from different perspectives.
Yeah. Maybe in future. At the moment we produce a lot of pigs, but we have not exported a lot yet. But that is actually the future of Vietnam. Okay, you started talking about pig sectors in Denmark, etc. And we are here for SafePork.
Yeah.
And I know that you have been many years with SafePork, this series of symposium on pork. Can you please tell us a little bit about the history of this series of the conference?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I was not there when it started. That was back in 1996, where I had recently done my PhD and I was still at the vet school in Copenhagen. But it started in Iowa in the USA back in 96 because they were interested in addressing the challenge of salmonella in pig production. And they wanted to combine the views of both the food business operator, academia and the competent authority. So they started back in 96.
Yeah.
What has happened since is that every second year a meeting will take place, and in the beginning it was very much focused on salmonella, but gradually this theme opened up, so it was all the hazards that are of relevance to pigs and pork production, including the processed products. So for example, at this meeting here in Rennes, we also hear a lot about biosecurity. We hear a little about animal welfare and something about African swine fever.
Yeah.
So it is a unique opportunity to discuss the current challenges.
Okay. So I see the name International Symposium of the Epidemiology and Control of Biological Chemicals and Physical Hazards in Pigs and Pork. So that changes every year, or that is actually Skype, the fixed name of this series of symposium?
This is the newer name because we have moved and extended it, so it's not just about salmonella, but for example, if we're talking about the chemical hazards, it can be the residues of antimicrobials. How do we set up surveillance systems where we can identify what's there, but also systems to prevent that we will have residues in the meat?
Okay, so probably next time in Vietnam we can think about another title that fit better to the
You can
context.
do that, one of the beauties about the SafePork is that it is the organizing country that decides precisely which subjects should be covered at the conference. So for example, we were in Berlin in 2019.
That was my first SafePork.
At a time where African swine fever was exploding.
Yes, I remember that.
So even though you cannot say that African swine fever is related to food safety, we still had some sessions about African swine fever because it's relevant for our sector. Because if you have outbreaks, you don't have production. You have to euthanize the animals.
Very important. Yeah, very important. High economic impact diseases. I remember the FLI show a lot of study of ASF at that time. Okay, so let's think about that. And actually, we just announced that in October 2027, Vietnam will host the next SafePork conference. So that's very nice. Okay, so
can I comment on that?
Yes.
Because the way I see SafePork is that it's a kind of a train. It's a train that's arriving, and we will now be arriving to Hanoi with the train, with a lot of people who are attending here, what we call the regulars. So it's people coming with a very positive, curious attitude, and we have a structure where everybody can talk to everybody. So if the student has an interesting project, the student will present it. The professor can ask questions. Everybody talk, everybody collaborate. So to me, it's a SafePork train. It moves in, it engages a lot of young people in particular, because they see this is a way to move forward. It is about collaboration, it's about friendship, it's about later on you can send an email, you can have working groups. The train comes in, it stays there, and people, they will remember it for years.
Yeah, thank you very much for this analogy. I like it very much, and I could realize that from my first SafePork in Berlin. I missed the one in the US, but this time I met also many people that I had met in Berlin, and I sense that people are connected.
Exactly.
It's a great community. People are very open,
yeah.
And it's not about for people very senior like you. I saw also master student,
yeah.
Many PhD students going to the stage talking about their work. So this is very, very nice of you. Okay, the first day you organized the workshop on meat inspection,
yeah.
And you told me that it evolved a lot from one year to another. So can you please tell me a bit more about how this idea came and how you managed for the last 10 years or so this workshop? And this time, of course, I was very happy to bring also our colleague from INRI,
yeah.
presenting our work from developing countries.
Yeah.
So tell it more about that, please.
Well, first of all, to me, meat inspection is not just about, for example, in an intensive slaughterhouse in Europe. It's not the 30 seconds that you see a carcass pass an inspector looking at it. To me, meat inspection is much broader, and it started with that we found out that the typical way that meat inspection is done in Europe was very expensive and really not contributing much to food safety, not contributing much to animal welfare, animal health, because we were simply following the procedures that was written into the legislation, and the legislation was made many years ago, but things have changed around. So we were all in a situation where we're saying, we're doing this because it says so in the legislation, but maybe we could modernize the legislation. But coming from a small country like Denmark, I cannot change the legislation, but I can make studies, scientific studies, where I can show that maybe we should do something differently. And I can be in communication with other countries that are facing the same reality, that it's expensive and we're not getting very much benefit. So together, if we can share a new version, we can find the evidence, we can show the scientific value of the impact of changes, then we can go to the legislators, national, international, could be my own country, European Union, could be VOA, FAO, WHO.
Yeah.
It can be, you decide. And a lot of the things we have been doing has already now been implemented in international law. For example, the trichinella. We don't need to test each and every animal for trichinella. We can think about where does it make sense to test. So that's
the risk-based approach.
The risk-based approach is so important.
So how much have politicians in Denmark listened to you and the organization to change the policy from research evidence done by you and others?
I think that they have listened a lot because we are collaborating, so we are involving the competent authority very early in these projects. But I must also say that my greatest successes, they appear only where the competent authority their expectations aligns with mine. If I want to erase something where they from the beginning says this is impossible, then it becomes really difficult. I don't say it's impossible, but it just takes longer, You need to be very patient when you want to change legislation. It may take years. So for example, we have a project, we say we would like to change this way. If you have a tail bite that develops into septicemia in the pig and you have abscesses in the carcass, what to do? Should you condemn the entire carcass or could you do local condemnation? We worked on this for 2 years and then we changed the way we did it. And we're moving on, but I always have to tell my director, please be patient, because we're not talking about weeks or months, we're talking about years.
And the example you talked about, the cholesterol things, as the politician didn't understand. So that was actually the consequence. Can you elaborate a little bit about that example?
Well, I think we just have to understand that it's not just about facts, it's not just about evidence, but many of these issues that we work with, they are sensitive. If we are talking about antimicrobial use and resistance, there's a lot of concern. So sometimes this concern can drive politicians to take actions that maybe they're not needed, or maybe they are needed, but to be fully effective, they should be done maybe in a different way. So I think we as a scientific community should always be there to help the community, to help the competent authority to make the legislation in a way that works. And the best way to ensure that is that if they do it together with the food business operator, which means the pig producers, for example, but also academia. So the universities are also playing a role in this.
Yeah. You see, in One Health and Eco Health, we emphasize very much the aspect of transdisciplinarity.
Exactly.
So it's with my former boss, Jakob Zingstad from Swiss Tropical and Public Health Institute, we talked a lot about that. It's not about academic knowledge we produce from paper, research, etc. But really, bringing the perspective also of non-academic actors, like farmers, politicians, and on these things. And only in this way we can transform the process and come up with policies that fit for purpose. A specific site.
And when you talk to your colleagues, you are hearing, for example, at the SafePork meetings, you are hearing their experiences, both the good, what works, but also equally important is to hear what didn't work.
The failure is also
you need to hear about the failures. You need to know, well, when Denmark, for example, we set suddenly a weight of 10 to cholesterol in the yellow card. It just meant that the consumption of antimicrobials went from using cholesterol to using macrolides. We could all have foreseen that. So you need to be careful when you are making your legislation, and you need to inform all the parties that will be impacted by the legislation before you initiate it, because maybe together we can do it in a better way.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay, so can you tell me a bit, some of the highlights of the workshop you organized this year in Rennes on meat inspection?
Yeah, I think the highlight to me was that these new technologies where we're using the sensors, and the sensors can be that you can see something or you can smell, you can hear. I mean, all these new technologies, they are gradually getting cheaper, so affordable, and we can find out of new ways to use them. For example, on a farm. So the pig producer he'll have a warning if the temperature becomes too high or ammonium will be too high concentration, or at the abattoir that we can actually have cameras that can help us to find, for example, fecal contamination, because the meat inspector who stands there can get tired. It's a repetitive work. I don't think nobody can do it perfectly. Or for example, with the poultry abattoirs, at the big modern intensive poultry abattoirs, a meat inspector has to inspect 3 to 4 broilers per second. That's impossible. So maybe these cameras can help us.
We need innovations.
We need the innovation, and I am aware that this discussion is maybe more for the, not the low and middle income countries, but still I think also in low and middle income countries there might be some sectors representing the exporters that may be interested in have an interest in seeing how can these new technologies help us.
They can catch up. No, in
Yeah.
low and middle income country, you have a big business also. You know, they actually, you know, they have these model things to do. Okay, so can you, Fred and Sing, you can go for lunch. I join you at lunch. Yeah. No, yeah. Okay, that's 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, Lis. We came here with Fred and Sing and some other folks, and we talked about our research on food safety and meat inspection in low and middle income country. And in the plenary session, I told you and colleagues that, you know, I have the feeling that we are from 2 different worlds. So of course, and that is reality, right? You know, poor hygiene, poor infrastructure, poor knowledge, etc., lead to a more important contamination. But you said that, you know, there are kind of niche in low and middle income country to use also technologies and all these things. But obviously, we cannot really scale up in a large scale for these geographies.
But
so what would be the advice for countries
Yeah.
in that areas to improve more quickly the food safety in that context?
But if you think about cell phones, also people in Africa, in poor areas, many of them have cell phones. And now they know about what's the market price. If I go to this market with my sheep,
Yeah.
they know it now. I mean, Africa didn't have to spend as many years as we have in, you know, gradually going to use these technology. Maybe low and middle income countries, you can take a jump.
Yeah. Because
So-
the phone is the same in Denmark and
Exactly.
Kenya and Vietnam. So the phone, it's the same phone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there might be things that we are actually incapable of foreseeing. But also, having said that, I know that in a lot of low and middle income countries, there are challenges. For example, sanitation, to have proper sanitation. And I'm not ignoring that we need funding to deal with these very basic infrastructure first. On the other hand, I do hope that what you hear can also inspire you, and I also hope that you can come back to us and tell us, is there something we need to negotiate and something we need to understand? I'm sure, again, that talking to each other is the only way we have forward.
I like it. That is about partnership, and we talked about North-South partnership, and now even talking about South-South partnership.
Yep.
We need to exchange and help each other. Okay, time is running up, but I still want to learn a bit more about you, about Denmark, because, you know, I talked a lot with Anders Dango from University of Copenhagen, and he told me about the pig sectors. Denmark is a very small country. You produce a lot of pigs, and most of them you export for a high price.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit the work and the government support to the pig sectors? In particular, talked a bit about how you guys manage antimicrobial use.
Yeah.
Because, you know, actually looking at the level of antibiotic use in pig sectors in Denmark is very impressive.
Yes.
You go towards almost very low or even zero.
No, not zero, but low. Low.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is my
What
question.
I'll say is that the Kingdom of Denmark is small. We don't have mountains. We don't have deserts. We don't have rivers. So it is like it's a lot of arable land. We are capable of producing food for 12 million people, and we're only 6 million people in the country.
Yeah.
So we have a huge export, and it deals.
It's only pork or also other type of food?
It's also milk, cheese, so dairy products, and we're also producing broilers.
Yeah.
But by the end of the day, I would say we are a pig country. We have annually around 30 million piglets being born in this small country, and half of them are exported when they weigh around 30 kilograms to other countries because of the potential, the breeding potential they have. Many other countries like the genes because the sows are having a lot of piglets.
Yeah.
So it's a good story, but it's also a story that comes with responsibility. Responsibility for keeping antimicrobial use low, to keep down resistance as much as possible, to ensure animal welfare, and to have a high biosecurity to avoid that we get introduction of infections such as African swine fever.
Yeah.
Because if we get swine fever in and we cannot export, then we have a huge problem with all these pigs. So we do a lot of effort to have a high biosecurity. And regarding the antimicrobial use, you say it's low, and I agree with you, it is low. I think this is the outcome of working so much with biosecurity.
Yeah.
You know, we have the SPF system. It started back in the 70s, where we had production of pigs that are free from the most costly animal infections, like Actinobacillus, pneumonia, mycoplasma, and so on. And that system, it costs a lot of money to maintain it. So we have a breeding pyramid, and at the top of the breeding pyramid, they take blood samples every month to be sure that the infections are not there. And then we have the next layer, the multiplier herds, the breeding and multiplier herds, where the blood samples are taken once a year, and they send out again. So we have a very structured approach where a finisher herd will only receive piglets from one sow herd, and it's by contract and it's stable. And I think that started that with healthy pigs, you don't need to treat as much as if you're importing or buying in from a supplier where you have no idea about what the status is.
Yeah,
So
it need to go together, right?
It needs to
need
go
set
together.
system, and you can track. You trust on the source, and you know the quality.
You know that the diseases are not there,
Yeah.
or let's say you have PRRS virus, you think it's okay to buy from a sow herd with PRRS virus. But also PRRS virus, we are now in the process of, I'm not allowed to call it eradication, but we are lowering it, and it's going very well, again because it's in collaboration between the farmers and the competent authority and the food business operators and academia.
Yeah. So biosecurity is key.
Biosecurity
behind
is
all
key.
this story.
And I would also say the pig veterinarians, that we have this system that they move from between all farms, so they can help the transfer of technology. They can say, this works, this doesn't.
Yeah.
This vaccine is better than the other one. Let's try with this feed and not that one.
Yeah.
So the pig producers, they need support from outside, because else they are only in their own little reality. So again, they are also in need of having some good people to support them. And in Denmark at least, it is the pig vet, but it could be that it's paravets in Vietnam. I mean, we have different systems, but the pig producer needs someone to support him or her.
If I take the successful example of managing antibiotic use in Denmark, so obviously vet services, capacity, biosecurity, you have a system that work. We cannot really buy antibiotics everywhere like in many countries. What would be the implication for low and middle income country? What do you see as a solution? Not very quick, but in a horizon of 10 years, of 20 years, what would be the advice? Everyone have to achieve the level of biosecurity. Is that Danish having?
No,
or,
I don't
or
think
what
so.
would be the options?
I think it's very important that an individual country map what is the challenges in your country. Let's say that you are in a country where you mainly have cattle. Well, focus on the cattle. If in Vietnam you have a lot of pigs and you're interested in them, look at what challenges there are. Which infections do you have? And then think about what can you put on the responsibility of the individual farmer? Where is it the sector and where is it the country? Because you cannot expect that the individual farmer can, for example, handle African swine fever.
Yeah.
There you need the whole country to help. But so you should start mapping what is the situation, and then find out of a prioritized way of dealing with what is needed to be done.
That is very nice advice, and I think that we need to really see the reality, for a country where INRI is working or operating. We work mostly with smallholder producers, and that also add up another layer of challenges to have the good biosecurity, because farmers are not really investing in this good biosecurity because of the cost also, and the incentive, what do they get from that thing. Okay, Lis, I want really to talk longer with you, but time is up, and my colleagues is waiting for me to visit the Institute Pork.
And I think we should continue talking when we come to Hanoi.
Yeah, of course. Or even in the meanwhile, we can exchange. And of course, we will invite you, for sure, to be part of the committee and so on. I think that you have been always there anyway.
Yeah,
and when talking with you, of course, we often refer to colleague Delia Grace, who works a lot in food safety in traditional and informal markets.
Yeah.
And I hope that she will join us also in 2 years in Vietnam.
Yeah.
We
And
miss her this time.
Delia made the most wonderful presentation at the workshop in New Orleans, where she presented the views of low and middle income countries regarding modernization of meat inspection. I still remember her talk and the beautiful photos she shared.
Okay.
So yes,
great.
Delia should be there.
Okay, she wouldn't be there. I hope for next time. Okay, and also to conclude, also I also have many colleagues from Denmark. Some of them
Yeah.
and actually our AMR lead at CGI and INRI, Arshnee Moodley, she's associate professor from Copenhagen
Exactly.
University, and of course she knows you very well.
Yeah,
and
Arshnee
I'm
is a
very
great
happy also
person.
this time to meet you here. And
Yes.
also I met your husband at the conference, so that is really a nice circle of people, very close, and we had a good talk. And actually, thank you very much for your time and for sharing the experience as chief scientist of the Danish Agriculture and Food Councils, but most employees are willing to share. I think that is very important thing.
Yeah.
Lis, see you very soon. Thank you very
Thank you.
much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.